to the startup grind.
So please give a warm welcome to Pascal. So usually we like to start off by understanding a little bit more about you personally, like where you came from. Did you grow up in a big city or in a little village?
I grew up in the suburbs of Zurich. The village is called Herliberg. That's about 20 minutes outside of Zurich.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I went to school, yeah, and grew up.
Okay. And when you were young, did you already feel like you had some entrepreneurial aspirations? Were you selling candy in school, or what were you thinking when you were young?
I was selling candy, yeah. I was, probably more a sales guy than an entrepreneur. I was lucky. My father was a reseller of electronic devices, so he went to Asia quite often and brought any kind of new techie or whatever there was around home. Yeah. And then I learned quite fast that I could actually sell that in the schoolyard.
What age was that?
Primary school, about third grade. Yeah, probably the entrepreneurial spirit there was to get to know that I couldn't do it alone, because the bigger kids would steal it from me. So there was a bigger guy, an older kid, whom I gave some of the assets I was selling to protect me. So I know, yeah.
And here in Switzerland, at a very early age, they sort of try to set you on a career path. What did you study, or what did you, when you were 15, 16, what were you thinking? Were you already thinking architect, or is that something that came later on?
I was thinking of architecture quite early. Okay. When I was young, that was along policemen and the other things. Mm-hmm. and then after school, before studying, I was thinking of economy or architecture, and decided. And
was it some iconic building that triggered that, or did you have a lot of Legos when you were growing up, or what triggered the architect in you?
It was a book I read when I went to travel a little bit before studying, and I read a book. I think it's called a Journey to the Stars, or something in English, and that was. It was not about architecture, but about a guy who had a really good memory, and he built buildings in his mind, and he went to rooms to pick up memories and arrange stuff, and I guess that was quite fascinating for me.
Okay, and before you started Archaeologic, you were working in some other companies, including outside of Switzerland.
Yeah.
What was that like the experience abroad?
Yeah, that was a very important experience for me. Well,
where was that?
It was at first. Well, you have to know, I dropped out of architecture school after the first year. Okay. That was and I dropped out of the design class in architecture at the first year, where actually everybody passes, because you just put some boxes on top of each other, and you say, but I was offending the professor, and he was telling me to quit. Yeah. I wasn't an architect, I should leave. So I went to Barcelona. After that, just wanted to see something else, and I was working at a bar there and having some jobs besides. But then I still was thinking, okay, barkeeper is not really the best thing. I will apply somewhere to do an internship, and I went to architecture offices, because I had my first year and some drawings portfolio. And luckily, the guy who took me as an intern was a professor in Zurich. So I worked there for half a year, and he encouraged me to go back to university and study architecture.
And where did the idea for Archaeologic come from? So first, what's the elevator pitch? You have a room full of entrepreneurs to critique your elevator pitch.
We try to simplify communication in architecture.
Cool. That's a great pitch. That's very fast elevators. So where did the idea come about?
Well, it was a problem we all were facing during studies, and after finished studies, I was working at a company, at a big architecture firm here in Zurich, and I realized it's pretty hard to communicate your ideas to a client, and there's a lot of forth and back and redo stuff, and you could really do that in a better way.
Right.
And so the problem was always there. Every architect knows that. Every client of an architect knows there's some gaps between the two parties, and we were always looking for tools to break these barriers between different parties. But basically, the idea really of Archaeologic came from my CTO, who's actually here. It's Thomas. He came with a beta. We were studying together at university. He's an architect as well, and he showed us a little proof of concept of what Archaeologic is now. Yeah. And we were blown away by the prototype. So that's where we want to put our time.
Just real quick, if anyone has a question at any point in time, just raise your hand. We have a mic available as well, so just wait for the mic to come. But we're keen to hear your questions as well. So during the course of the conversation, just raise your hand and take your question as well. So on the topic of your co-founder, your CTO, the initial concept, you were 4 co-founders, right?
Exactly.
Were you all 4 friends already?
Yeah, we all studied architecture at ETH, and we got to know each other from classes, and you already saw there's some overlap in some topics. We were all a bit into code and 3D and kind of interested in that stuff. So you could choose classes. So you met the same guy in that class again. I was like, oh yeah, here again, yeah. And so we already during studies we started doing projects, competitions together, and all the stuff. Yeah.
And from your experience in founding a company with friends, I guess you guys developed your friendship first, later came as the idea built, and then at some point you decided to found a company. Do you think that works really well to establish companies with friends, or it's better to have a business partner? How was your experience with that? And at the same time with figuring out how to share the company amongst you with the equity, and who gets, do you all have equal rights, or is there, how did you go about founding the company and deciding together amongst the friends how to split up the equity or the value of the company?
Well, I think the reason why we were founding the company was not our friendship, but it was because we knew actually we make a good team. There's everybody of the 4 founders has his field where he's the best, and the other ones are maybe bad. So we realized we are in that team. We're quite good. Right. And then it was equally distributed by the 4 founders of the company. There's always been and will always be equal distributed between the founders.
Okay. And so far it's been 2 years?
Yeah, almost 3.
Almost 3 years. And,
yeah.
and has your friendship been put to the test? Has there been moments where you weren't sure?
Yeah, we fight a lot. We fight, but that's okay. I mean, we just try to keep it positive. Keep the arguments positive, because we know, as I said, we all have different skills and maybe different ideas on some topics. And that's a good thing, and we all know that it's a good thing that maybe one disagrees, and we have to figure out which one is now the best way to go.
Okay. And you were working in an architect office as well, or was that it's also a company you founded, or the architect?
Yeah, both. Well,
so Archaeologic, it does the 3D rendering, and the architect company is focused purely on the traditional architect.
Yeah, the first company we founded during studying was Noah. That's not an office, and that was really not an office. So after that, we realized, okay, we have to go for some legal thing, right? And then we did a first company, Einzelfirma. And then we did a GmbH, I don't know the word in English. That was our architecture company, which still exists, but now we are focusing on Archaeologic. And the third thing was then the limited Archaeologic.
Okay. And and do you still have to split your time between the architect company and Archaeologic, or you're focused fully on Archaeologic?
We fully focus on Archaeologic.
Okay. All right. And do you know roughly how many 3D models you've done so far?
No. It's
over 35,000.
35,000.
Yeah.
3D models.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. And what advice would you give to Swiss entrepreneurs who are looking to start a business? I mean, you went through all the main stages of having your own company, or the different types of companies, from the simplest form to, I guess, now a traditional again, and the different processes that go through that. So what advice would you give to someone starting out?
Well, I think, as I said, for me, it's important to have the team, the right team, the right skill set, not just having people around you who are putting you on top, but really great minds. I forgot the fifth one. That was our first big hire. That was also has an angel who has become operational, who's now dealing with all the fundraising, operational, finance, all that stuff, where we realized, okay, this is not easy just doing some funding and then it's done. It takes time, it's a lot of work. So that was really important. Hiring and building up the team, to me, is the most important thing.
Question from the audience?
Hi, I'm Brian from Neuchâtel. First, I wanted to give you some kudos. I have background in architecture as well, and I tested out your app. I sent in a apartment that we're building in Neuchâtel, and I was amazed at the turnaround. It was about 5 or 6 hours. Was that one of you guys that drew it up? It's really good.
Cool, thanks. We develop a plan recognition algorithm that starts to read plans, and there's repeating stuff in plans like doors and windows and walls you can recognize. And when building more and more models, you can give it back to the machine, so he learns what came out of a plan. So that's one part of our work, plan recognition.
Okay, so it's mostly an automated process, so there's not a human involved, or just to check?
It's partly automated, and then we correct it, and we tell the machine what it actually did wrong, and make it Nice.
Interesting. Curious too about your monetization strategy. So there is a cost to create the plans after you, except I had the coupon code, but I see also that you have branded furniture and lighting and things like that. So is that also a monetization idea there as well, that, you know, click here to buy this light or this piece of furniture? Yeah.
Yeah, it's part. I mean, we want to also bring stuff inside your apartment that interests you. You can rearrange furniture, lighting, and then you can go to the web shop and buy the stuff you want.
Mm-hmm.
You buy services or what interests you. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks. Well, again, kudos. I was very impressed by the turnaround. That was amazing.
Thanks.
So you were previously talking about your latest, I guess one of the most recent addition to the team. You guys have now grown over the last just over 2 years, or almost 3 years, into a team of 20 people. How did that transition from the 4 friends to the first hire to 10 people to 20 people?
So we started with 4 guys, and then we had first 2 hires were developers hired by our CTO, and then we had some friends joining who are now not part of the team anymore, because we hired them mainly because they were friends and not really because they were because of the skill set. So that's when we realized, okay, that, and also took time, you know, the hiring, and then okay, breaking up, hard time, hard feelings, why didn't it work? So we started setting up a hiring process that consists of multiple steps and a lot of interviews. So we try, each one of us does an interview, does a personal feedback without talking to the others, and then a guy who didn't do an interview reads through the interviews and does a summary, and then gives feedback to the person and goes again in an interview. So we set up quite a process to do hiring, considering not only the particular skill set, but cultural fit and all the aspects we think might matter working with us.
Right. And as far as the company culture, growing into a bigger team, I guess it develops over time when it's just the 4 of you, the 4 friends who are used to each other, and then you have new people joining, and then before you know it, there's 20 people in the office. How do you keep the spirit young and the culture that you set off with as you grow?
We try to give people an amount of freedom. They can always, you know, we have a weekly catch-up where we talk, the whole team sits together, we talk about stuff, and everybody can come up with their own thoughts and ideas and speak openly. So, but of course it's a balance between focus, work, issues that have to be solved, but having spare time, having freedom, so it's a balance. Yeah.
And as everyone knows, hiring developers, developing a company, growing your business, everything you do around a company requires money. Did you guys bootstrap? Did you get investment from the beginning? Did you borrow from family and friends? How did you start off?
Yeah.
And from what I understand now, you guys have already raised some money.
Yeah. We had when we started with Archaeologic, we got a spin-off label from spin-off label from ETH.
Okay.
And then we had a friend for the seed investment who was, we did some architectural projects with him, and we designed a shelf and stuff. So he totally believed in our team. He said, what you 4 guys do, that's gonna be fine. I'll give you a seed investment. That was the first one. And then we had you call it a Series A, maybe post-seed with Swiss angels. And that was the time where also one of the angels became part of operations of Archaeologic. So those were the 2 rounds we had now, seed and an angel round in Switzerland. And I think that's about it for Switzerland, for Swiss investors. Yeah.
And you're still looking for more funding?
Yeah, we are going for an international round next time.
To expand internationally, to grow the team, to focus on, or what's the idea?
Yeah, to expand and to go international, because what we have very good feedback from other countries. I mean, most of our customers are not in Switzerland.
Okay.
And
you're generating revenue on a regular basis, or how's the product side and the business side of?
We are generating revenue, and that's a question how fast we want to grow or how fast we want to make revenue. So that's also some kind of balance we have to find.
Do you have the microphone?
I can speak to the other one.
It's okay. The mic is going to come to the recording.
Yes, okay. Oh, okay. It's a very simple question. Thank you. Hello, my name is Studio Lopez, and in my past life I was an architect as well, but I told him by the time we used to draw with pencil, so this is all new to me. My question to you is very simple. I was looking here your page, and I understand that anyone can just play around and create a 3D model. So as any person creates this model, then they can contact you to develop it further for their project, or it's just you offer just this service as creating a model?
We offer the basic model, and it's editable, not on the phone, but on a computer. So you can move stuff, you can drag and drop furniture, and then you can go deeper and deeper. You can edit architectural assets. You can plug in the SDK and code stuff. So we give a basis, and we hope that people start interacting and understanding space. Yeah.
The mic's going to come from behind you. Okay.
Hi, my name is Joseph Press, and I'm also a former architect. You probably half the group here has come out because of the architectural connection. So I had 2 questions. One of the challenges that I recall when I was practicing in architecture was that clients had a challenge to really feel spaces. So even though we were able to render them, and I used pencils as well back in the day, even though they were able to 3-dimensionally see them and play with them, it was always a challenge for them to actually feel what the experience is like in the space. And what I've seen over the last couple of years, a platform which I'm sure you're familiar with, Who's. And I'm just curious to see if you're thinking about bringing in references like what's available in Who's, or How's I think it might be called, as a way to go beyond just the 3-dimensional imagery to bring in this element of actual feel and emotion, which I think explains why the How's or Who's site has become so popular. Second question I had is, what is your long-term vision? Is it going to be to expand the platform to be able to have other types of architecturally related services, or are you waiting for Autodesk to come and make you a suite offer?
Well, I'm going to answer them in one piece. I think what you're talking about, House, is really working with impressions and visual stuff. What also interests us is more functional things, where people start to interact. So understanding not only by looking, but by moving and by working with the stuff. And I think this is where we want to create an open platform so that other parties can plug in their functionalities and offer services. So we try to become a platform that offers a 3D platform, and people can, I mean, already today you can just drag and drop your 3D model. You can plug in your functionality and work on this and share it because it's web-based. So this is our vision, and we want to make it big and do it ourselves. Yeah.
Cool. Does that answer your question?
It depends what their vision is and how that is. Yeah.
So no one understands everything or knows everything about business or architecture or technology or investing. I'm sure there's over the last few years of developing Archaeologic, there's been questions or fields that you needed support in. How did you find mentors or people that would support you in building the business and giving you insights or guidance?
We also were when we had the first investment round. We could choose an angel that has grown a software company, that has gone through the whole process, that could give us advice, that could connect us to the people. So when doing funding rounds, we were interested in money, of course, but also knowledge and
right.
how that particular person could connect us to the right person who could then train us and give us advice and help us. So that was part of the funding.
So as a key element of the funding was also that the person involved or the angel funder was also willing to mentor and support and connect you throughout the long term.
Yeah, exactly. More important than a strategic offer that
right.
could just put us in the market and place our product, but an entrepreneur angel who would give us advice and tell us he went through the stuff and connect us to the people to teach us.
And was there any major event or major failure that you guys had in developing? And how did you bounce back from that? Either with Archaeologic or maybe before that? How have you, was there something?
Major failure?
Yes.
Oh, we have many failures. I think one problem still for us is to keep focus, to choose actually a way to go, because when you start developing a 3D platform in the web, then you can you're going to talk to clients who want to put in from city scale models to a piece of wood. So you have all the range of scales, all the range of functionalities, and you can't do everything at the same time. And I think that's a learning. You can't do everything at the same time, so otherwise you just burn out. And
right.
So choosing priorities, which means is not doing something, but just doing something first and then the next thing, prioritizing.
And has there been any moments where you felt like you made it?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Still getting there. You guys have quite a bit of success already, but who would be your dream customer? Who would be the person you'd most love to engage with?
No particular person. I would just love if 0.1% of people start using our tool and trying to, because I think everybody at a point of his life is communicating about interior spaces, about buildings. I mean, we spend quite a lot of time inside buildings, but we don't really understand them, and I hope that more people start to understand buildings and to work with buildings, and more architects get a bit more open-minded and not being inside their bubble of architecture and not sharing information. Oh, yeah.
So, looking back on the journey, where did your focus go? I mean, how was it shared across all those things of investing and building the product and building the strategy and building the website and managing the company itself and the hiring? And so that's question one, is where did the focus go? And then question two is, how did that match against your expectations when you started on this journey, thinking, you know, it's for architects with a great idea? Did you find you could put most of your energy into the idea and the vision, or did you find there was a lot of other stuff that ended up taking up most of your time?
Mm. Well, we started with we were a spin-off of construction processes. There, when you construct a building, there's a lot of information in silos, where the acoustic guy builds a set of information, and the guy who builds the floors has information, and they're all separated. And we wanted to bring this together and make construction actually easier. There's a lot of communication going on as well, and we realized pretty fast there was no way to get there, because the response from the market was so bad. The construction guys were saying, I don't care about your stuff here with your 3D models. I have my PowerPoint and my Excel sheets, and I don't want to hear anything. But there were other parties at the architecture company, like the marketing guy or other people who were really interested, saying, oh, okay, that's actually a great thing. So we are shifting. Is not that we had that bold vision from the beginning, which was set in stone. We had to adapt by always talking to the market. We went out, we talked to people, talked real estate people, architects, and also clients, everybody involved. Okay.
And are there copycats of Archaeologic?
Well, yeah, there's competition, of course, out there, and so far we have quite some brains on WebGL, on 3D in the web. So we are, I think, still the best out there so far.
And how does that, because you've also talked a little bit about virtual reality, and even with your model, you can use, for example, Google Cardboard and walk through the 3D model. Mm-hmm. You see that as being a potential focus, or is that sort of a distraction or a side?
No, it's a great thing, and all of our models are VR ready. I'm not sure if, you know, there's different kinds of. At first, I thought, okay, this is a niche thing where the game people and more technology, but because it's super expensive, and the Goop and the Oculus and the HTC, you have to put them somewhere. But since Google Cardboards and stuff like that came out, I think it's a great thing. And you can use it with your mobile and anytime, anywhere. And it's great to walk through buildings and stuff. And I love it. Mm. So we're also focusing on VR. Yeah.
Okay. And earlier on, in the earlier stages, as far as I understand, you guys attended or participated in a lot of competitions, a lot of startup competitions. How do you see that? What's the biggest benefit? Because on the one hand, it can be a distraction having to prepare and go to these competitions, and on the other hand, you benefit from the network and from meeting people. What was the case for you guys?
Yeah, it's a little bit like fundraising. I mean, it's a necessity, but it takes time. And as I said, the good thing, we realized we need somebody who's really dedicated to that part. Mm-hmm. And
that's a full-time job.
That's a full-time job, and that guy goes there, and we can focus, because it doesn't work doing all things at the same time.
In the early stages, did you participate yourself, the early team, in competitions?
Yeah, we did participate in the Swisscom Startup Challenge.
Okay.
But we looked at stuff very carefully before participating to
maximize the value.
Exactly. Yeah.
And are there any key books or quotes, or where do you draw your entrepreneurial inspiration from?
No key books, no quotes. I don't have a very specific influence. I have my team around, and we have, our team consists of people from all disciplines, all countries, and that inspires me quite a lot to hear visions of a not architect talking about Archaeologic, of a not Swiss person talking about the vision. And,
yeah. And what do you feel is the most important requirement to be an entrepreneur?
I think you have to be a team player in the right. You have to have a team around you, the right team. You have to know what you're good at and what you're not, and not being too selfish or on the other, be open-minded, listen to people, think about stuff, and yeah, I think timing is pretty important. In the sense of what you do at what time. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what advice would you give to a young Pascal if you could go back?
Go ahead, do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. Don't think too much, maybe.
And when it comes to marketing, you guys did a little bit, took sort of a growth hacking approach and guerrilla marketing, doing the 3D models of famous people's houses, and then sort of riding the wave from there. What advice or what can you share with us when it comes to growth hacking and from a marketing perspective? I guess, like you said, architecture is not the sexiest of technologies and businesses, and it's kind of initially more niche, but at the same time you want to make it accessible to everyone. So by creating a 3D model of Frank Lloyd or the Simpsons house, you are able to attract, I guess, a much wider crowd. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so our approach there was, there's each and every one of you has a model that is important for you, especially for you. That's your apartment and your office, and on the other hand, there's a model which is important to a lot of people. The Simpsons, or at least you know it, the Simpsons house and Frank Lloyd Wright and architecture. So that, of course, then is our content we use to market our technology and to show you, hey, look, you can walk through the Simpsons house, but also there's a 3D model that's more important for you and where you start to interact. So it's about the content in our case, these two things, the one that attracts, that is important for you, and the model that is important for everybody. And then I think it's just the quality has to be right, the content has to be good, and okay, what you also learn as an architect, you make a story out of buildings, you try to tell a story. So we usually packed our marketing models into a story where people start to understand things, and then as a third thing, hopefully interact and start realizing, okay, it's not only looking, it's interacting, it's playing.
And when it comes to partnerships, you've been able to establish a few partnerships with some key players. Was it easy to establish those connections? What's it like reaching out to larger establishments?
It's what I realized. The large companies, they are slow. They're really slow, and it takes a lot of time. It's not you're a young startup, and then maybe in Switzerland with your first customers, it goes really fast, and you have that website next week. And when it comes to bigger companies, it gets more complicated. There's more people involved, bigger teams. You go to meetings, you go back. There's the legal team looking at it. There's the marketing team. There's all sides, and then there are a lot of negotiating and working. So it takes more time, yeah.
But so far you feel it's worth the effort?
Yeah.
Going out for the result?
Yeah, I mean, it's also good for your reputation, right? People start to see, okay, big companies work with that startup, so that might be a cool thing.
Okay. And do you have family? Your own personal. Do you have children or wife?
No, not yet. I have a girlfriend.
Yeah.
We're not married. We don't have kids yet.
So how do you balance work and life?
Yeah, I like what I do. So it's not really that I don't have kids. I don't have a family. I can work anytime, anywhere, and I don't feel like there has to be a balance, because I'm passionate about what I do and I love what I do. So that comes naturally.
Right.
Also, I mean, if there's a few architects around, you get used to working a lot. You get trained to work nights and work a lot.
And do you have any hobbies?
Yeah.
Is Archaeologic your hobby?
No, I sail. I love sailing. I play soccer. I do sports in general. I like traveling as well. So.
Nice. Any other questions from you guys? You guys have been a bit quiet tonight.
We have 10 minutes left, so if you have pressing questions, go ahead.
It's a very basic question. Just hello, I'm Daniel. I have a startup myself. We're in a medical device company, so it's going to be a long time until we have some things to show. So I'm just wondering, are you break even at Archaeologic already?
No.
Okay. But you generate revenues. I mean, you're 20 guys in the company, which is very impressive, and congratulations also.
Yeah. Thanks. We're not break even. As I said, this kind of a balance between growing and researching and doing new stuff, or on the other hand, just creating revenue and then having customer things. So we try to find the balance between the two.
And do you guys have a exit strategy?
No, we don't have an exit strategy.
Someone says that. And but is that something because you feel like you want to develop this and grow it to be big, or you haven't really thought of that, or what's your perspective on that?
We really want to grow it big, or at least I do. I think there's a huge potential in being a web-based 3D platform.
Mm-hmm.
I think there, as I said before, if you have your environment, your flat around, or your office, you can make decisions based on that, where you put your table, how your flooring could look like, and there's a lot of functionality and content that works around that 3D platform.
Right.
And building that up is cool, and I love it.
It builds on your last point. How have you pursued your IP development strategy? Are you filing patents like crazy? Do you plan to license anything later as part of your growth strategy?
No, we have to grow fast, and we have to be the platform. There's not much we can do about it. It's just being better and having it first. Yeah.
Sorry, what's so far or was the most difficult part of being a spin-off?
The most difficult part of being a spin-off.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, it's not specifically a spin-off topic, but when you're a Swiss startup and you talk to institutional Swiss investors, they don't really believe in a vision. They want to, or they let you talk about your vision and they say, yeah, that's all good. And how much revenue did you create last month? And so that's kind of you're Swiss. You're a spin-off of the ETH. That's already, you're branded there. So if you talk to a US VC, they will say, okay, I don't care about your revenues. What's the vision to rule the whole market? What's the bold vision? So we're kind of between those two worlds. That's how I feel a little bit, like a Swiss startup. We have that Swiss mentality, growing and creating revenue, being break-even as fast as possible. And then you have the other VCs, American mentality, where you say, you have to grow as quickly as possible to be the winner takes it all platform. That's kind of, yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, me again. I have another question, very different side. Like conceptual, we do like, I wonder, your customers are architects, so they design in a software. Do they actually create the buildings in 2D, and then the plans are 2D, and then you make the visualizations? Because in mechanical engineering, for example, you design in 3D, and the 2D plan is the result of the 3D drawing. So then actually making the visualization again is kind of doing work that has already been done because you have a 3D model already. So that's what I'm wondering, are architects designing in 2D, or do they already have 3D software where they could do their visualization in? Do you know what I mean?
If our customer is an architect, he usually has, or some of them have a 3D model, which they can just upload, just drag and drop it into our tool, and then they can view it and share it. They usually have it on a desktop application, which is a licensed software, and it's somehow trapped in that software, and they can drag and drop it into our tool and then share it. Share the link with whoever they want it. And if the customer doesn't have a 3D model, they can use our service which is from 2D to 3D. So there's different options to use our tool, our platform.
So would you say the core of Archaeologic is the visualization or the communication?
Communication, definitely.
Okay, so it's also they comment on the 3D plans. Then.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to, our core business is not to build 3D models, but to connect it and to put it in the web and connect it with functionalities and services and assets that are interesting and valuable for the person to look at it.
Thanks.
So following on from that question, if the core of the vision is around communication, still your 3D platform is at the core of the product and the differentiator versus what competition might want to come up with. And the question is, how was that to go about building a 3D model from scratch when this is something that many other companies and many other products already have? Did you buy your core platform? Did you really start from nothing and build it? And how do you maintain it to be better than the competition?
Could you pass the mic to that guy, CTO?
Hi, I'm Thomas. He's always giving me too much credits. But so generally, we use open source libraries and we learn from them. We want to go open source ourselves at some point. And it's all about spatial data. So actually visualizing it is one part, but it's just more a derivative of actually the data itself. But that's what you see. So most people think we actually we render models, right? But towards your question, we focus on modularity. So we have an SDK, which we have in private beta, and we have, for example, ETH and for other universities. They are using our data set to run large-scale analysis on them, which they were not able to do that before because there were not such sets available. So it's more about these kinds of things which are more interesting to us, which are related to communications on a larger scale. I hope it answers your question.
Okay. So we have 2 more questions, and then I have a few more to wrap up.
Maybe somebody who's a first-time asker first, right?
Yes. What about existing spaces? You know, like IKEA with augmented reality. Would that be something you're considering as well, or already doing?
Yeah. I mean, we are. I think Thomas said that quite well. We are interested in in the set of data. There's one thing is to look at it and to walk through, but there's all kind of information behind that data, and there's all kind of possibilities to show that. You can walk through it with a VR glass. You could project it with the HoloLens somewhere, so that the set of meshes of 3D data is what interests us, and how to display it. Everything that supports 3D 3D displaying is great for us because it supports our content. Yeah.
So I think in the spirit of that kind of question, you know, what are the other channels or market opportunities? Again, I have 2 questions, and maybe a little bit provocative. The first one is, what was the estimated market potential when you put together your business plan to secure funding to get to the place where you've got 20 employees, even though you're not turning a profit? But I would expect at some point in time you put together an estimate. Here's the market potential of being able to visualize 3-dimensional models. Here's the market, here are potential customers, be it engineers, architectural firms, and clients. Here's the overall market potential. So I'm curious what that number is. I'm curious when you made a commitment to achieve that number. And my last question would be, what is or will be the pivot that you as a firm, would anticipate making to shift into gaming, for example, to shift into virtual reality. Is there a pivot on the horizon? Because of the first question, you may see that the market potential is a challenge to reach. Is there a pivot? So sort of two related questions, both a little bit provocative as the last question.
Yeah, well, the first one, the numbers there, the reason why we made that first hire is to get us those numbers and to set up those crystal ball number games where you have the hockey sticks and old markets, and we couldn't really do it, and we could have done it, but it takes a lot of time to think about that stuff where we would not be focusing on where we're good at, and that's something I'm not good at.
But do you know off the top of your head what the potential market value of Archaeologic is?
The real estate global market, I don't know.
Roughly?
Roughly, what's that? Billions.
I mean, you guys have done 35,000 renderings already, then that's just scratching the surface.
The range goes from something really low up to 10% of gross domestic product, which is basically related to buildings and the buildings industries and all around buildings. And I think that the biggest insight there is that you actually, a large chunks of these markets are far away from digitalized at this point yet, right? So there is digitalization happening in silos, but there is nothing established like a network or something.
And you're an early player in this space.
Exactly. We believe in the power of the internet. So far we have seen other industries like where the power of the internet it just turned them around completely. And this didn't happen to the construction or architecture or real estate industries yet. I mean, if you look on how news has been being produced 15 years ago and now today, like the barriers between producer and consumer is totally blurred. And in construction or architecture, it's still very clear. You have producers and you have consumers. And as soon as the digital natives, the generation of digital natives will get into this age where they build houses and buy houses, they will apply their patterns. Yeah, so they will kind of not do it the way it's being done today. And this is what we believe in, and this is where the direction we go. So we don't know exactly where we will pivot to. We do pivot, we do not jump, but every half year or so we kind of consider what we have done and how to adapt.
So the next step is actually printing out your 3D house.
Yeah, for example. There's great approaches, and we connect with those. For example, like one to mention is the Wiki House, which is kind of also going in that direction. But it's just one, right? And we try to we are connected to those and work together with those.
Thomas did there's a little micro machine car asset in our library, and you can put it in your flat and then race around your flat. Already.
Cool. So just to wrap up, there's a short series of 9 or 10 questions that we like to ask every guest that we have. They're very simple, very short, well, not always simple, but they're very straightforward questions. And just the first thing that comes to mind is what we want to hear. So what is one item that you own that you would never sell?
One item that I own that I would never sell. I don't know, those sneakers.
What is your most unusual skill?
Most unusual skill. What is an unusual skill?
We can move on.
Let me come back to that.
Okay. And what's more important, strength, speed, or stamina?
Was I stamina?
Yeah.
Speed.
And which historical figure do you most admire?
Which historical figure? Nietzsche.
And what's the best compliment that someone has given to you?
That I don't know, I'm a good boss.
It's a good one. And what's your favorite season?
Spring.
And when was the last time that you tried something new?
Today.
And if you could have the attribute of any animal, what animal would you choose?
The animal, and attributes.
No one's going to grade you on that. It's not a test.
Yeah. I'm thinking of which animal I prefer. Maybe a bird, and then what's the attribute? That would be
to soar,
birdie.
flying like an eagle.
Fly. Yeah, something like that.
Pascal, thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
Appreciate your time.